Good evening, YouTube. This is your host, Michael. And first thing I'd like to do is give a couple shout outs. We've got Eagle Electric and Logan Simmons. Thank you so much for the support. And I have special guest tonight, Pat Murphy. Pat, thank you so much for being with us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your YouTube channel and sharing a little bit about my story. Um, Basically, start with a little bit of my work experience. I have spent 43 years in the work environment, primarily in the accounting, auditing, and examination area. I first started out of school after I got my degree with a company called Genesco. And Genesco was a conglomerate, large company that primarily dealt in the apparel business, most known, for their footwear. At the time I was with Genesco, 1973, there were 26 footwear plants in the southeast United States. And from there, Genesco acquired other companies, much to their detriment, though. This 1974-75 was a period of time which we had a very deep recession. And this recession resulted in harm to Genesco because when they acquired companies, they acquired a lot of debt. And at the time I started Genesco, I think their stock was like $60. And the time I left, it was well under 10. And today, there are no footwear plants in the United States, certainly not by Genesco. Most footwear is made overseas. From there, I went to a bank, got into auditing at the bank as an internal auditor. And the best part about going with this bank is I met my wife, Bobby, and we married, and we both worked at the bank about 5 years. She went on to work with then Senator Fred Thompson. Prior to that, Fred was an attorney and actor. From First Federal, I went to the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta as an auditor, and primarily we were responsible for auditing other Federal Reserve banks. And I did that in the 6th District, 6th Fed District, which encompassed the Southeast. There were branch banks in Nashville, Jacksonville, Miami, New Orleans, and Birmingham, Alabama.
Now let me ask you, Pat, did that involve a lot of traveling when you did that job?
It involved a great deal of travel, mostly, throughout the Southeast, and about toward the end of my tenure with the Federal Reserve, was with them 5 years. Because of all the travel, and we had our first child in 1981, I decided to move to something that required a whole lot less travel. So I went actually with the state of Tennessee, started out as a bank examiner with the Department of Financial Institutions. I did that job for 32 years. Started out as a bank examiner trainee, worked my way up through the ranks as an examiner. I was a financial analyst, and then my last job through the last 8 years or so, I was an assistant commissioner with the department. Then I retired.
Now, how long were you an assistant commissioner for, Pat?
About 8 years. I
Okay.
had two tenures of that. Actually, it was more than 8 years. 8 years was the first tenure, and then about 5 years my last phase of being with the department.
What were some of the positives of that job? What were you able to do to really help, say the community, and what kind of stuff were the positive aspects, do you think?
Well, that's a very good question, Mike. Our responsibility was ensuring the safety and soundness of the banking system in the state of Tennessee, which involved examining institutions for compliance with rules, laws, regulations, and also the financial integrity of their balance sheet. So essentially, we were ensuring that folks that put money in the financial system of Tennessee, banks, credit unions, their money was safe and sound, and that folks that made loans had loans through these institutions. Their loans were in compliance with state and federal regulations.
Okay, that's very interesting. What were some of the negative aspects? What did you say took a toll on you as far as doing that job? Was it? I'm sure it took a little bit of time away from your family, a little bit, right? Or
The primary negatives really involve the constant change of laws and regulations and its impact upon the industry. Nothing was ever static. We were constantly dealing with new laws, regulations, mainly from the federal level, that had an impact on our institutions. So that would be the most negative aspect of it: the constant change, the constant having to relearn,
readjust too, I'm sure. You had to readjust.
to learning new laws and regulations and enforcing those, and the impact that it had on our financial system.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. It's a very interesting job that you did for a long time.
It was ever changing. I started with it involved closing banks. When I was with the Federal Reserve at Atlanta, we had to close several banks in Tennessee. The banks were under a gentleman by the name of Jake Butcher, and it was a domino effect. I started closing banks in Knoxville, and the domino effect went all the way to Nashville. And of course, that was again during a period of another recession, and banks weren't performing very well. They weren't earning, and it was difficult because when you close a bank, people lose their jobs, and it affects, on the human side of it. You see that it's not just closing an institution, but the impact on folks that work at that institution.
Yeah, that would be a very, very difficult, challenging part of the job, wouldn't it?
It's very difficult, very challenging, and it affects you.
Yeah, I understand. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about kind of some of the stuff that you used to do. Now, one thing that I believe a lot of people don't know about you is that you were a pilot at one time. Let's talk about your being a pilot. Tell us about it.
Well, piloting was just a real passion of mine. It goes all the way back. My grandfather was a pilot, so I have a little bit of the DNA from him. He primarily did crop dusting, the old biplanes, and he did that for a living. For me, when I was very young, 6, 7 years old, I started building model airplanes, built just dozens and dozens of them, and was always interested in flight, how it worked, what made an airplane stay in the air. And after I got out of college in 1973, I decided to take that passion to the next level. And I started my flight training, and the training was out of Berry Field, Nashville International, and my instructor was a lady. Her name was Natalie Terry. Natalie was a real small statured person, but a heck of a pilot. And I recall the first time I ever got in a private plane and flew with Natalie. We were making our final approach, coming into Nashville, and she landed that darn thing on one wheel. And I think the purpose was to see what my reaction would be. And she saw that I went with it, no problem. From there, I bought an airplane, had it tied down in Berry Field, and flew, loved it. And that's kind of my short analysis of my flying. And
Well, thank you so much, Pat, for sharing that with us. I know a lot of people didn't know you were a pilot, so.
a lot don't. A lot don't. I'm still involved with the organization. I'm a Shriner as well as a Master Mason. And at the Almena Shriner Temple, I am a member of the what we call the Flying Fez, which is a group of aviation pilots and enthusiasts, and we get together and talk about flying and our experiences, and so I still keep it on the front burner.
Oh, wow. Well, Pat, thank you so much for sharing your story.